Well, hey, everybody, and welcome into What the Hill is Happening. The October episode is here. So much has happened since the last time we were all together in September. Of course, we just wrapped our women's conference, the Exchange Women's Conference, which was a just fantastic weekend. And of course, yesterday, if you weren't at City on a Hill, what were you doing? We had the beginning of a lot of things, the beginning of the month, October 1st, beginning of a new series in the Gospel according to Mark, the beginning of a new era, kind of, with 3 services, a lot happening in that particular Sunday. If you weren't there, we missed you. Come back this next week. But one of the things that we wanted to kick off this episode with was a just kind of general discussion over the sermon series, over the Gospel according to Mark. Mark is a really important work within the New Testament for a lot of reasons, and historically one of the more interesting Gospels. You're going to hear me interact a little bit probably through the series with some of those historical factors, but one of the things that we covered in the Ultimate Road Trip series was the fact that when Paul and Barnabas separate in Acts, they separate over who?
Over Mark.
John Mark. Yes. And of course, Mark is later discipled by Barnabas. Paul eventually recognizes Mark's usefulness. Everyone gets along. But history tells us actually that Mark's gospel, who, by the way, was not present with Jesus during the events of the gospel, is likely a recollection of the Apostle Peter. The memoirs of Peter is sometimes what it is referred to as in church history, which I think is just a fascinating part of his story. I mean, when you think about the other apostles and the people who were closest to Jesus, I mean, Peter is a very functionally center individual in the gospel narrative. And so to be getting this account from someone like him and written by John Mark is just really an awesome thing to think about. But I have on the show for this particular segment, RJ, who's been with us before, and many of you are familiar with him. He does a variety of things, not only with our student ministry, preached actually this summer at the high school and middle school camps, does some work with us in the creative side as well. But RJ is really on here for a couple of very specific reasons. One is because throughout the summer camps that I just mentioned, he preached through Mark. That was the theme this summer. And so he's very familiar with Mark and has been kind of thinking through this as well, both because of the sermon series and because of the seminary college. He goes to the college there at Southwestern Seminary, and I mentioned a few weeks ago, several weeks ago now, that part of what it means to multiply the ministry at City on a Hill is to develop leadership. And one of the things that I hope to do during this series this fall is actually have RJ with me on the stage, much in the same way that James had me preach with him, as RJ continues to develop into whatever ministry God has for you. And so, first of all, hi.
Hello.
Glad you're here.
Thank you.
So talk about, so obviously this sermon series that we're doing on Sundays is extremely creatively themed. We've titled it The Gospel of Mark. And honestly, I wanted something a bit less specific because I don't want to be tied to any one theme, right? Preaching verse by verse through an entire gospel, there's just so many things that we're going to be dealing with, and to have to kind of link them to one thing or the other is really kind of a challenge. For a summer camp where you're preaching 4 or 5 times, it's a lot easier to do that. So talk about your theme, because your theme was way, way more creative and cool than ours is.
Yeah, our theme was the adventures of the Son of Man. So focusing on, Jesus being portrayed as a superhero through the lens of Mark.
Yes.
Mark, like you said, was a disciple of Peter.
Yep.
Peter actually says he is like a son to him in one of his letters. And so he has a very specific audience, right? Because Peter was mainly focused on the Jews.
Correct.
And so Mark tries to bring that into perspective when he writes about Jesus and portrays him as a superhero. Obviously, we didn't go into the whole Judaism and, the audience with the students. But it was very interesting to see how Mark portrays Jesus in a very specific way, concealing his identity as the Son of God up to the very end of the book, where one person says, truly, this man was the Son of God.
Yes.
So
Awesome.
that was my favorite part. And it actually ended up becoming probably my favorite gospel.
Yeah.
The Gospel of Mark now.
Yeah. Mark is great. Mark is like, of all of the gospels, the simplest. It's the shortest. It's the simplest, and very almost certainly the first of the four gospels. Do you remember the last?
I do not remember. Well, probably John.
It was John. That's correct.
Going by logic.
Good.
Yeah.
You want to take a stab at who is second?
So I'm going to guess Matthew, because he
Look at
borrowed
this.
from Mark, right?
It's like you go from seminary to the so that makes Luke third. Yeah, and
no, we were doing a Bible trivia here.
yeah, I didn't either. I just sprung that on you. But yeah, so John's gospel's written anywhere as late as the 90s AD, which is just remarkable to think about. This is 20 years after the destruction of the fall of the temple, and I mean there's all kinds of things that take place, and you're talking decades after that. But yeah, Matthew does borrow from Mark. Matthew, if you're reading critically in the New Testament issues, some people have advanced this idea that Matthew is borrowing from Mark and a separate source that we don't have, that I think is referenced as Q, not QAnon. Source Q, and we don't really know what that was. There's no real honest. I mean, some New Testament guys may totally disagree with me. I'm not a New Testament guy. I'm a systematic guy, but I think that it's unnecessary, just to be totally honest. But you can see how he borrows from Mark and expands, right? Likely as that first gospel started being circulated, more questions arise, and so Matthew seeks to sort of expand some of those parts to provide further clarity, to kind of answer the questions before they come up. So yeah,
and it makes sense, because when you look at Matthew's gospel, it's a lot more in depth.
It is
of the details that go into Judaism.
Yes.
And he really, like, if Mark was trying to speak to the Jews, Matthew was like, I am speaking to the Jews for sure. You know it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, very fascinating stuff. And we're just now, we've got like, I think 5 weeks left. I have to go back and count. I think maybe 5 or 6 weeks, I think, left in Luke's gospel and our Life Bible study. This is something that's been kind of confusing for people, and I guess I can understand why. I mean, maybe it hasn't been as clear in my talking, or maybe it's just because they're both gospels. But we've been in Luke for now, I believe 82 weeks, something like that.
I think 82.
Yeah, we have 86 or 7 total. I can't remember in my outline. Plus, then we're going to actually have 2 weeks of recap. So normally at the end of a book of the Bible in our Life Bible studies, we'll do 1 week of recap. But we have 86 sessions with 2 to 3 takeaway statements from each of them. I mean, do the math. It's going to be like almost 200 sentences to read through, and that's way too much in one. So I figured it'd be kind of cool to do at least 2, maybe even 3, honestly, when I get it all put together, of just recapping Luke's gospel. And then we'll do a separate thing there. So we're going to have a little bit of overlap in our Sunday morning experience. If you're in a Life Bible study, you'll be studying Luke. Then you'll be also hearing from Mark in the sermon series. But of course, if you've been to both, you know that sermons work themselves out just a little bit differently than a Bible study does. And so I want to hear your thoughts on this. There's no like real right answer, I don't think. But why is a gospel sermon series more advantageous, or is it more advantageous for inviting guests?
I would say the number one reason is, again, not that the other books of the Bible don't, but the Gospels specifically focus on the person of Jesus,
yes,
obviously, and the works that he did while he was on earth, and what he accomplished as a human being, but also the Son of God. And so it is a great opportunity for us to present the gospel to new believers. And so just like we did at summer camp, I think we had 7 students
Yeah.
come to Christ.
Yeah.
Because of, not just the sermons and everything, but the conversations that we had in the small groups were focused on the gospel
Right.
message that was brought in the book of Mark. And I love being able to do that, through the life of Jesus.
So good. So good. Yeah, I fully agree. I think the highlighting of the actual earthly ministry of Jesus is so compelling, and what people, I think, are most naturally drawn to want to hear about, especially that are not churched or don't know a whole lot about the Bible. There are a couple of other reasons why I think so as well, and one of them is not any different than the Acts series, because Acts falls in the same category, but it's a narrative. And I personally feel like, and maybe, I don't know, drop some comments below. Love to hear your thoughts. I think for me personally, as a preacher, I preach narrative the strongest, because I think I'm naturally drawn to storytelling. I like craft. I like building a story.
To
And you don't have to work as hard with that in a narrative that's already laid out for you. You're just sort of bringing it to life. Whereas like in a Pauline epistle, it's really more didactic and teaching oriented. And you have to, I don't know, I feel like you have to be more creative in those passages than you do in a gospel.
Yeah.
So I feel like in terms of just like what you're going to be experiencing on the Sunday morning, kind of week to week is better in general. And so therefore better for guests as well.
Not only that, I also think that, the letters, Paul's letters, and
Yep.
even the other books like Revelation, well, maybe not Revelation, but like Hebrews, they have a certain tone to them that
They do.
is more, I guess, used for discipleship.
Yes.
Whereas the Gospels are like, here is the good news
Yes.
gospel, right? And
Yes.
so the letters are like, here's what you do after.
Yeah.
Let's walk together as
Yeah.
Christians and
That's so
disciple
good.
each other.
That's so good. One thing I do want to draw just another kind of quick distinction here for some of you who may be thinking this, and I know I've heard certainly several people say this as well, and I think there is some error into this kind of thinking. Sometimes I think people think, well, I think this will be a great series to invite a friend to or a family member to or whatever, because we get to hear the actual words of Jesus, right? And what I like to remind people is that we're actually hearing the words of Mark, dictated by Peter, but empowered and inspired by the Holy Spirit. And because of that, then, what I don't want you to walk away thinking is that somehow the Gospels are more important because they hold more authority, because they hold the same amount of authority, because it's not Jesus who put his hand on the page and wrote it. It was Mark. Again, inspired by the Holy Spirit, but no more or less than Paul or any of the other authors of the New Testament. So that's just some kind of quick distinction to keep in mind, that I think there are reasons for why a gospel sermon series are better or is better for a guest or a non-Christian, especially as they come into our church. But certainly it is not because they hold more weight or they're like somehow more important because of the words. They're all words brought on by the Spirit and written down through human agency. Yeah. So just a quick little point there. What's your favorite story from the Gospel of Mark?
I know this is weird, but it's definitely the demon in Mark 5.
That's not weird. That's one of the coolest stories there is. Yeah.
Just because studying for summer camp, and we went over that passage
Yeah.
at summer camp. We couldn't go over the whole book, but I compared that to the other Gospels, and that story in Mark is one of the longest passages that Mark writes. And you'll notice that, well, you know it, but Mark is very short in his writings, but some of the things that he writes are actually very extensive and way more extensive than Luke or Matthew or even John.
Yeah.
And that passage with the demon is one of those.
Yeah.
Like it's a very long narrative, and at the end of the day, he's just displaying Jesus's power over demons and spiritual forces and over everything else.
So good. So good. I hope that you, if you haven't been yet, of course, we just started yesterday, so we'll give you a little bit of a break. But hopefully you'll be joining us again next Sunday and for many Sundays after, because we do have a long time in Mark. And we would just ask you to continue to pray that God would put someone on your heart to invite to church, to be brought into what is, in my estimation, the greatest story ever told. The story of God taking on frail human flesh and dying that we might have life. Really just an incredible time together. So we still probably have some inviter cards left, I imagine. I haven't checked, but I think they're probably available. If not, you don't need them. You can invite them anyways. Of course, service times are 8, 9:30, and 11. CityOnAHillDFW.com will give you all the information that you will need. You can also check us out on Facebook and on our YouTube channel, City on a Hill DFW. Those are great resources to pass on. If your friends, family that you're considering inviting are podcast listeners, of course, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon are all places that you can find those as well. And so any closing thoughts?
I was just going to say the journal as well.
The journal.
Great resource.
Oh, I'm so glad that you brought that up. That would have been devastating to forget. Yeah, so we have the journals available that are in the ESV version. They have the entire Gospel of Mark in them on one page and the journal pages on the other. So you can use those throughout the entirety of the series and take notes, write things down, prayers, concerns, comments, date it every week.
I will say it's even easier to read because it's like it's a smaller book, but everything is better spaced out.
Yeah.
And so it's so easy to follow, and you'll love it if you get one.
Good
Our
font
students love
size,
it.
the typeface is great. It's it's $100 and it's $5. So, and if you don't have the $5, then come and talk to one of us. We'll make sure that you get one. If you have like $10 in your pocket, you want to bless someone and buy two, then buy two and take one, and then we'll have a little bit of overage as well. But coming up next, we're going to be talking about nothing, because this is it. This is the end. This is not the end. I'm sorry. Just kidding. I'm so tired. Coming up next, we are going to be talking about Trunk or Treat. And so stick around, and this is one of our kind of flagship events. Thank you for being on here.
Thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. We're going to transition topics here to Trunk or Treat, also known as Fall Festival, also known as Harvest Festival, also known as, I'm just kidding, but we have called it a lot of things. Wow. And it seems like every time we changed the name to the new, whatever the new one was, James was always one step behind.
Yes.
So it is Trunk or Treat, though. That is what we're calling it, because it is a trunk or treat, a little different than the previous iterations of this event. And we're excited.
How many years have we been doing Trunk or Treat now?
So
Was it Fall Festival or took a 1-year break in the last 10 years? That's all I know. That's as much as I've been around.
Was it 2020? It was
no,
because that's when I got sick.
Right.
So
COVID. That was the COVID treat. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that was
everybody came for candy and went home with COVID.
So that was not the first year we did Trunk or Treat, because the year before that
2019
was either 2019 or 2018. It was. Do you remember the year that it was like freeze raining?
So that was our first year,
2019.
because during that Trunk or Treat,
y'all were moving.
We were moving, and our U-Haul with every single thing we owned was in the parking lot.
That's right.
Well, today is 99 degrees, so freeze rain feels like a long way from here.
It does. Yeah. It does. But I remember that, because I remember it was all set up, and it was like brutally, and one of my daughters was sick that night. I don't remember which one. And so Jess went with the other, and 2019, Lydia probably was with me, because she was real little at that point.
Yeah.
I don't remember no, she did go with Jessica, because we went and got ice cream. Man, this is like, I'm accessing core memories.
Wow.
But yeah, all that to say.
Yeah, this year,
October 31st, which is on what the pagans call Halloween.
We like to Hallows Eve.
We refer to it as Reformation Day, because we're Christians. It is from 6 to 8.
Yep.
Which is going to be great. And we have Chris with us today, Chris Cunnington. You all know him for, I guess, the outreach component of it, because this is one of those events that really falls in kind of a community outreach perspective. So tell us a little bit about.
Yeah. Obviously, the major focus, is families and kids on Trunk or Treat. That's really who it attracts. But it probably is the most gospel-oriented event that we do, and we've done different things, throughout the few years that we've been trying to share the gospel as part of the Trunk or Treat, and we're going to bring some of those things back. Some of those things.
Last year is where we got the "What do you believe about Jesus" shirts, wasn't it?
Yes.
Indeed.
So we're going to do that again. So
Okay.
we'll have an opportunity for our church members to wear the shirt. What do you believe about Jesus? And just ask the short 5-question questionnaire. There were some really meaningful conversations that happened with that. So we're going to do that again. We're also going to do the gospel beads bracelet again. So the kids will progressively look for the 5 different color beads among the trunks. And each time they get one, they'll hear the next part of the gospel, kind of based on the Romans road, and so they'll hear the gospel that way. And then we've got a new thing this year. So we've got a live band, and we've had that for the last few years. So we're going to interrupt the music at 3 different points. So at 6:30, 7, and 7:30, and give a 5-minute presentation of the gospel, just in the style like you would think of if you were at VBS on the stage with the high energy teaching, and so we'll give our families a chance to see kind of what you would get at City on the Hill on a Sunday morning, gospel project material that we're using. But there'll be another way where everyone will get the chance to hear the gospel.
So what I understand you saying, Chris, is that you're going to rap the gospel live on stage.
Oh, I'm not going to commit to that, but hey, if it makes you come out there, then
Come to Trunk or
just
Treat
know
to-
that it's
to
a
hear-
possibility.
Yo, Chris raps.
You heard it here first.
Yo, Chris raps.
You heard it.
That's a terrible rapper.
So
You know your worship pastor's white is.
talk a little bit about there's a couple things we're doing for this event that will benefit the 2024 mission trips.
Yeah. So there's a free event, so people can show up. They'll get the gospel in various ways. They'll get a whole bag full of candy, lots of different games. But the 2 other things we'll have will be a chance to purchase food. So probably is going to be burgers and quesadillas.
Yep.
Those were both super popular.
Well, I know last year,
Sold out.
yeah, sold out, and I think was it like bison burgers or
Yeah.
something?
So bison burgers. So this year we're talking about pork quesadillas, and we're talking about using deer meat for our burgers. So utilizing some of that, and that money that we raise from that, and also a dunking booth. So you will pay to dunk surprise personnel. Okay, so we won't tell you exactly all that's going to be, but you'll get to pay to dunk people, and that money and the money from the food is all going to benefit mission. So local and mission trips.
Good.
So there's 2 different things. We've seen a huge amount of increase in benevolence requests this year, and so some of that money might go to local mission, and then some of it will go to mission trips next year, which Puerto Rico and.
So I'm assuming it's probably going to be some of our staff members who are in the dunk booth. We don't know exactly who yet. But, if any of you have been recently baptized by anybody on staff, you might have a chance to baptize some of our staff members.
We dunk our staff members like we baptize our members, which is fully immersed.
Well, if any of you have sat on the front row when
nearly
baptisms
rebaptized.
happened, you're probably getting baptized again anyway.
True.
It's going to be great. Hopefully it's not freezing rain again that night, because that would be a different experience than dunk booth.
I'm kind of for it here. I'm going to be honest with you. It ups the ante, makes it a little more exciting. and,
If we have freezing rain, we'll still do it. We'll just charge $10 instead of $5.
absolutely.
Higher stakes. Will the person in the dunk booth catch hypothermia?
For the gospel. Will they catch hypothermia for the gospel? That is
Hey,
really
man,
the
it's a
question.
nice game.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's some ice cold resolve there.
It's exactly right. Jeez, what are we doing?
I don't even know.
What are we even doing?
So that's all the things that we're doing for outreach and everything.
Yep.
We also have we're gonna have a trunk dedicated to one of our newest ministry things that we're doing, Awana.
Yes.
So it's gonna be an opportunity for our community, kids and families to see, like, if you come back, because I think Trunk or Treat's on a Tuesday.
Yep,
this year?
Tuesday.
So it's going to be immediate, like, hey, if you come back tomorrow night, here's what you can expect.
Yes.
Because I know Awana's been great for our children's ministry so far. So,
it has been amazing.
It's amazing for our kids. I mean, my kid, Oliver's learning, he's learning scripture and quoting it at home, and I mean, it's been already life-changing, in the kids' lives. It's also really cool because it's something that people already know.
Yes.
If they're not a part of our church, but they've they've been around church, maybe have left church. It's going to be something they're familiar with. So I think it gives them a chance to reconnect with something they know something about already.
I
So,
agree.
yeah,
I think
it's
that's
cool.
it's really exciting. So that's October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. We hope that you'll come. Consider signing up for actually having a trunk. We love to have as many of our church members as possible do that.
Yeah.
Emma and the children's ministry, Ashley, they do such a good job of organizing all of that and having you, like right when you show up, they'll direct you to where to go and where to set up for. And through the years, man, we've seen some of the most creative, the most creative trunks decorated. And
we were out of space last year.
Yes.
We literally ran out of space to add trunks, and so sign up early.
Yeah.
And I'll say something about that because, Trunk or Treat is one of those events that is run by the church.
Yes.
Right? We do very little prep on all of the trunks. It's all run by just individuals. They buy their own candy and, and just fill that whole thing up. And that's really allowing us the opportunity to put the time and effort into all of these gospel-focused additions.
Yeah.
Because you all are doing such a great job with the trunks. So I can't wait to see what you bring this year. Some more Cowboys, some more Cowboys trunks. Welcome.
I will still say my favorite trunk I've ever seen. One of our church members set up a like a living room setup of a Dallas Cowboys Super Bowl party.
Yes.
But they were skeletons.
Yes.
It's been so long since they've been. I was like, I hate it and love it at the same time. Yeah, hate it because it reminds me of the truth. And I love it because it's brilliant.
Well, the trunks have been great as well because have you seen the Six Flags marketing? They have Fright by night and Boo by day, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like cute, scary in the day, and so we don't want anything more than that.
Right.
We're not looking for. So those skeletons were perfect.
Yeah.
They were right in theme.
They were perfect.
Not scary.
Yeah, we don't want necessarily ghouls and witches and all those different things. We want to be certainly. And, I'll say as well, if you're looking for other ways just to be involved, if you think to yourself, man, maybe a trunk is too much, we're currently, at the time of this episode dropping, accepting candy donations in the foyer. Or if you do want to sign up for a trunk and you have questions, check out the foyer. Emma's going to have a setup there for people to sign up, to drop candy, all that good stuff. Everything helps.
We almost forgot to talk about the people who come and are given the gospel and are rejecting of the gospel. We have a hell house set up in the back.
No, we did not.
Just kidding. We're not doing that as a joke. But some churches do that. They
do.
And I just can't imagine the results are,
Long lasting?
I'd love to see a study on that.
Yeah, me too.
They say it will scare the hell out of you.
Right on out of you. As far as other things that we're doing, we're going to have a photo booth.
Yep.
So we've already talked about the food, the dunk booth.
Yep.
We'll have some live music there being played. Bounce houses.
Yep.
And really just an all-around wonderful time.
Yep.
I will say the last few years, if you haven't been, you don't even have to have kids. I mean, that's the thing is it's such a fun community event.
Yeah.
Well, it's for our church.
Yeah.
And it's just great.
We have tables set up and people will sit around and eat, and it's just a great time.
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll come. Mark it on your schedule. You don't have anything else better to do that night. Be at the church 6 to 8. Very, very exciting. Thank you for being on to talk about this. In our last segment here coming up soon, we're going to talk about the 3 services that we just started and some fun suggestions that we have for you. If you are going to be staying for all 3, one of the questions that comes up is what do I do in a 3rd service? We're going to talk about it right after this. Well, for the final segment, I have brought in my arch nemesis and the person whom I hate more than anyone on the planet, Kelsey Barker. Hello.
It's here. Me. I'm here to ruin the day.
That's exactly right.
What?
I'm happy that you're here.
I'm glad to be here. It was wonderful to be a part of that last segment as well.
Yes.
Talking about the all the future trunks that will be in the parking lot.
Many trunks.
Many trunks.
Many trunks.
Car trunks.
How do you feel about 3 services?
Man, let me tell you. We just had our first service like that. Either yesterday or whenever, you're listening or watching this wonderful show. It was incredible, Derek.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kidding. We're filming this in September.
We have no idea.
I have no idea. So man, I have a mix of emotions,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, and
Yeah.
I'm sure you do as well.
I do.
I'm number one excited because the fact that we have to have more services is because we've had so many people.
Yeah.
Like I know this past Sunday, we had right around 250 people in the first service. And, so I always get done leading worship and I, go backstage and then come in from the back of the auditorium. And I could not find my wife. Like that's how packed it was because she was sitting somewhere different because of just the crowd in the room. And I had to help one or two people find a place to sit down.
Yeah.
Like it was insane.
Yeah.
And so, it's like obviously needed that we are doing these 3 services. And so if you came to any of our 3 services for this first Sunday of the month, I hope it was great. Obviously needed, so I'm excited about that. It also is more time.
Yep.
And I know that's going to be tough in some ways, but like I realize that the toughness will be worth it.
It will be.
Like that's kind of how I feel.
It 100% will be. I'm kind of the mindset that I have to like draw back. I'm like 5 services. Let's go, right? Like whatever it takes, and then I come back to reality, and I'm like, we don't need to do that. But 3 services, it is a lot. I am fully expecting. I've had several pastor friends of mine who have preached at churches where they had to go to 3 services, talk about the unique challenges, just mentally, emotionally, that it takes out of you. And so I'm kind of like gearing up for that. But, we had a practice run on Easter.
We did.
And it worked. There are some Sundays where especially here recently, where I've gotten done with one and I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to feel like when I have to do this twice more?
Well, because you want each time that you're doing it to have the same amount of like effort on your end. And, like you're not going to mail it in for anybody.
No.
But I think for me, I have to remember like what the source is for all of that.
That's right.
For me, like, because it's not Kelsey Barker trying to put on, the best worship set or show or, play the best songs. It's like, that's coming from the Spirit, the ability to do all that.
Well, and I have to remind myself that too, and I am reminded of that. There are times where, and you in the room know, I mean, I've preached through a lot of like really physically uncomfortable, sick, pain, like things that the general audience had no idea about.
No idea.
And
you were actually missing a hand.
Was missing a hand one time. No. But truthfully though, I've preached with fever, I've preached with not COVID, but preached with sickness, and it's like the hard part about it is not the doing it.
Yeah.
It's the in between moments where you're sort of like gearing up to go again. That's what makes it difficult. Once I get up there, that's where the Spirit, I think, really begins to do His work. And so I don't really even think about it that much. But yeah, it's the sort of anticipation of like of waiting but man, it is so humbling and it is so worth it to me.
Yeah.
Because of the kind of excitement and just the testimonies that I've heard, and it's really
well, and it's been funny in this like gearing up for it and everything, like seeing people who are excited about it, especially on like the teams that I serve on,
right,
or serve with, and like just hearing people who are like, I can't believe that we get to do this, and hearing that makes me think like people are actually bought in. And, like that's just such God's grace,
no doubt.
So, as we're talking to our church here on the old podcast, I'm sure that they're wondering what to do with their time on Sunday mornings.
Wow, that is a great question.
Because we're switching around their entire lives with the service change.
Right.
Because, now we have an 8 a.m.,
right,
a
9:30,
and 11.
Right.
And the question is, if they're coming at 8, what do they do with all that extra time, Derek?
It's a great question, and one that I hope to comprehensively answer now.
Wow. And a 3-part treatise.
Yes. No, so, this has been, if I'm just being honest with you, it's been one of the most surprising parts since we have made the announcement that we're moving to 3 services. I have legitimately heard many people at this point, I couldn't put a number on it, but like probably anywhere over 10 to 15 that have said something along the lines of, I'm so excited that I get to go to a Bible study now. Because so many of our church members come to a church service and then they serve in either the student ministry or the kids ministry. And now, because we have 3 services, they're looking at that third service as like, I can go to a live Bible study.
The whole bonus service.
It's a bonus service.
Bonus service.
And I do think that there is something to that. And so I think as you're thinking through your morning, do you commit that amount of time? I mean, really, it comes down to like, is Jesus worth it, right? Not to lay it on thick, but truthfully though, I think there is a way in which you can really get a lot out of your morning. And so whether that is, a church service or a Bible study at the 8 a.m., a church service and a Bible study at the 9:30, and then serving at the 11, or serving in the host team throughout the whole morning, and then just choosing 2 services to go to. I do want to make it very clear, just as a way of reminder, if you weren't there yesterday or October 1st, you're right. We shouldn't. This is always a strange thing because we film these in the month before we have them.
Is this the future?
So then we have to talk about the events as if they've already happened.
Or is it not?
So we're breaking the fourth wall here and sort of telling you that, it is.
Who am I?
It is not. But if you get to October 1st, or I guess by the time you're watching this, if you were there yesterday and you're like, man, I really don't know how to organize my morning, bear in mind, if you are a parent, that the primary services for students and kids, the only service for students, but the primary service for kids ministry is at the 11 a.m. So whatever you choose to do, make sure you set it up in such a way where you are going to like a class or a service time at that time if you have kids. Because what we hope, I mean, I think in the ideal world is that you would come to at least the 9:30 worship service with your kid or your student, depending on their age. But if they're in student ministry, to bring them to that 9:30 service so that when they go to student ministry, you're able then to go to a Bible study or whatever else.
Well, I think it's interesting, like your whole thought on that, because, man, I think in the last 20 years, there's been a big shift away from having families sit together in church.
Yes.
It's almost like hey, go get church, and while you're in church, drop your kid off over here so he does not bother you.
There was a woman one time that told me that she was upset about a few changes that were being made. This was years ago. And she was upset that her kids were going to have to be with her in church. She was like, church is for me. And I was like, no, ma'am, it is not for you. It's for Jesus, and it's for God's people collectively, and you're the primary disciple maker in your kid's life. Yep. And yeah, it just really breaks my heart. And I get it. Like, I understand life is busy and life is hard. And for me on Sundays, our family is obviously, we're pretty vested in the church. I mean,
why?
I don't know. Jessica serves on the worship team. She also serves in the youth ministry. Mm-hmm. So she has to be there at what time are you guys getting there? 6:30
in the morning.
Yeah, so she's there at 6:30 in the morning.
Party.
I am on dad duty on the morning, so I get the girls up and we go to church together before I come in to preach.
Actually, Lydia's joined the tech team.
She has joined the tech team. She's running the tech team.
Running the whole thing.
But all that to say, this is one of the things that we're talking about is like, obviously for one of those services wherein they are coming for, we can talk about this now. So we did communion. We're doing, you were there yesterday. We did communion. And this is a monthly thing now at the first of the month. And this is the discussion that came up was, I want Cam and Tori, who have believed the gospel and have been baptized, to be able to take communion. But we don't want that responsibility saddled on the children's ministry. And so we were trying to figure out, like, how do we work this out? And I think the
new bilinguals, communion.
Yeah. The conclusion we came to is like, if you have kids that are old enough and have been baptized and obviously then have believed the gospel and are therefore qualified to take communion, then they need to come to church with you on that Sunday.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to do. Like on those Sundays, they will come and they will sit with Jessica. They'll sit up in the front during worship, so I'll kind of stand with them. And then when I get up to preach, they'll be with Jessica throughout the message. Yeah. And So that's something for you to consider as well if you weren't there yesterday, to give consideration to if you have children that are of communion age and fit that model, then it's going to be really important for you to come to church with your kids and celebrate that.
Well, and taking communion with your whole family is like just something that is special,
So special.
and like I'm excited about it being in our services.
I am too. And
It's going to be great.
you know, we had a in my opinion, best night of worship we've ever had back in September, and really just a tremendous turnout. Tons of people
Yeah,
came,
there's a lot of people there.
but this is one of the reasons that led us to make this change. Was like, it's still not even half of what come on Sunday morning.
Yep.
And that's a problem when it comes to communion. It's if night of worship is not like, that's between you and the Lord, and our team is so faithful to serve the church regardless of the audience size, and it's not something they're doing for like accolades or whatever. But my concern pastorally is like, well, but we're also doing communion there, and that's the only time we do it. And so if you never come, then you're never a part of it. And so with this change, I think, man, it's just the best of both worlds.
It's going to be huge. And, you know, one of the things that you have made very clear in the past and that I love, I think one of the reasons why we started like almost segregating kids away from worship services was this whole idea of like kids can be disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we have a church that's growing and we have a lot of young families. And what I want our young families to understand as like your worship pastor and your senior pastor, like, it's okay if your kids are making noise.
Yes,
Like, it's good
we're all right with it.
because that means that our church is growing.
Yes,
And that means there's people with new life in our church.
it is a blessing of God.
So, yeah.
Sorry, my throat is a little dry. Let me knock this thing over and take a quick little drink here real quick.
What do you have there, Derek? Is that a...
It's just my new mug with the new City on a Hill logo.
Wow.
And also, it's really warm because I have this hoodie on, and it also has I hope I didn't break this.
I don't think so.
There we go. Yeah, it has this sweet logo here, too.
Wow.
You know,
Did you get like all that custom made for yourself?
I did not. In fact, they are available for sale right now at the church.
What?
If you take your microphone and you move your hand back like this, you'll literally hit a T-shirt planted for you to hold up as well. Look at that. We also have them in different colors, a couple of different colors for both this and that. And so
I
these,
think we also might have some just normal sweaters.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So all that to say, new merch available in the CLC.
Go get it today. And
Probably not today because it is Monday.
right to the church
right now. And but certainly the next Sunday that you're there,
Yeah. It's also available for purchase on our website.
it is.
And then I will say, and we didn't talk about this before, so you're gonna hear a live decision making session
Here
between
it is.
Derek and I.
The magic works.
Hey Derek, should we announce a fire sale
We should announce a fire sale right now.
right now? For how much?
$5.
$5 fire sale. $5
Fire sale. FDFS. FDFS.
So we have a lot of our older shirts with our old logo on it. We need to get those suckers out of there.
Yep.
We really do.
And so like a raging fire
Mm.
that cascades through the mountains of the Rockies.
Wow.
Actually, hopefully not. That would be tragic.
Terrible.
We want you to take your money and cascade them into our pocketbooks so that we can get rid of these.
We sound like a different kind of church all of a sudden. So in all reality, we'd love for you guys if you are like, man, I love our old logo and I would like a shirt. We're gonna sell those old shirts for $5. Come get them today. I think we have limited amounts on certain sizes.
Also, if you hate our old logo but are just like, I need a lawn shirt, or I like having shirts to sleep in, or I have kids that like those kinds of shirts to sleep in,
It's true.
those are also $5.
$5.
So just to be clear on that,
How much are they?
they're $5.
That's incredible.
It is incredible. You know, I am a little like, it's so like nostalgic for me because those shirts were like, we got those during 2020.
Well, and we really just didn't know about the future of our church at that point.
I know.
So it was like, we want to get these shirts, but we don't need to spend a ton of money on them.
Yeah. The new shirts, I will say, quality-wise, much better material,
Comfort colors.
super comfortable, comfort colors as well. Yeah, so it's all around a better shirt.
Yeah,
But
it
the old ones are,
Yeah.
they have a place in my heart.
Yeah.
So about a $5 place.
A $5 place.
So
indeed.
yeah, just to be clear about that.
Wow. Well, this has been a wonderful episode. Big things we've talked about.
Huge.
With the now,
Yes.
3 services, Mark series, and then the later of this month, which is Trunk or Treat.
Yeah,
It's just always good being here in your home, Derek.
I agree. A homely home.
A homely home.
A homely home.
The last homely home on the east side.
That's probably not untrue. It's been great. And if you find yourself ever driving around aimlessly, thinking about the church that you love,
What should I do with my life?
and you're like, I wonder what the hell is happening,
Oh, yeah.
then you know where to come. Until next time, we'll see you.